1 Corinthians chapter 16, verses 13 and 14 say this: "Watch ye, stand fast in the faith. Quit you like men, be strong. Let all your things be done with charity." And what I want to preach on is the world's shortest sermon on masculinity. The Bible teaches us what it is to be a man and what it is to be masculine, because it says, quit you like men. That means act like a man. And what is acting like a man? It says, be strong. Men are supposed to be strong. Men are not supposed to be these weak-willed sissies that walk around apologizing because they have a Y chromosome. That's not manly. The Bible says, be strong. Men are supposed to be strong, and men are supposed to be assertive. But at the same time, men are not supposed to be tyrants. Men are not supposed to be overly aggressive, because the Bible also says, let all your things be done with charity. A strong man has charity. A strong man is also a loving man. The Bible says be strong, but it also says with charity. So men are supposed to be strong with charity. Men are to be assertive, but loving. Men are to be strong, but compassionate at the same time. Now let's talk about the strength part. The strength is physical strength and spiritual strength, because it says right there, it says, watch ye stand fast in the faith. That's the spiritual strength. But did you know the Bible also teaches men to be physically strong too? Luke 11:21 says, when a strong man armed keepeth his palace, his goods are in peace. If you want to be able to protect your family, you need to be strong and you need to be armed. That's safety, folks. People like to try to squash masculinity in little boys when they're out wrestling or playing like that. Boys roughhouse. Now, obviously, they're not supposed to be abusive to each other, but boys play roughly because they're training themselves, because that strength is going to later on be used in life to protect their wife and kids. Little boys need to learn how to be strong, but they also need to learn how to be godly strong. Not just physically strong, that's important, but also spiritually strong. It's not that hard to figure out. Who would you rather have protect your family? Some social justice warrior with half her hair shaved off and the other half dyed purple, or a strong man with muscles and a revolver on his waist? It's not that hard to figure out which one's going to be able to keep you safer, folks. Men ought to be physically strong and spiritually strong, because men ought to lead as they are led by God. 1 Corinthians chapter 11 verse 3 says, "But I would have you know that the head of every man is Christ, and the head of the woman is the man, and the head of Christ is God." Notice, the head of every man is Christ. We as men ought to lead as we are led of God. If Christ isn't leading us because we're rejecting his word, if we're leading ourselves and not letting Christ lead us, we're out of God's will. We're not being manly. We need to lead as we are led of God. Because yes, the head of the woman is the man. Of course, men are to lead the family. But at the same time, if we're not letting Christ lead us, if we're not obeying where the Bible says the head of every man is Christ, we're not giving proper leadership to our family. We're not being proper. We're not being manly. Manliness is the ability to humble yourself before God and the ability to lead your family as you are humble before God. Now, manliness is also dress, because in 1 Corinthians 11:14, it says, "Doth not even nature itself teach you that if a man have long hair, it is a shame unto him?" These celebrities, these musicians and actors, these men that have this long hair, and you think, oh, that's so metal, oh, that's so manly. That's actually feminine. That's actually sissy. Men should have short hair. The appearance matters. You want to actually look like a man and not look like something that's gender confused, especially with all these transgender idiots running around nowadays. The next thing in manliness is men know how to be a provider. The Bible teaches that the man ought to be the breadwinner in the home, because the Bible says in 1 Timothy 5:8, "But if any provide not for his own, and especially for those of his own house, he hath denied the faith and is worse than an infidel." It doesn't say if any woman, it says if any, but it says if any provide not for his own, not her own. Men are to be the breadwinners. That's what's important, to teach young men how to go out and get a job and feed themselves, and not necessarily waste their time in college not getting anything done when they're actually wasting precious time that they could spend providing for their families. Men ought to be the breadwinner. Lastly, manliness is sacrifice. When your family needs you, you give of yourself to make sure they have what they need. Ephesians 5:25. "Husbands, love your wives, even as Christ also loved the church and gave himself for it." Jesus Christ gave his life for the church. Even though he's God, even though he reigns, he still gave himself for us. Do you give yourself for your family? Quit you like men. Be strong.